All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's wonderful to have you here. We are recording this webinar, and thank you so much for joining us today. This will be a 1 hour webinar. We're going to start at 5:30 sharp. So as you join, please take a time to introduce yourself on the chat. We also welcome you to include your pronouns and territorial acknowledgement. We are at time, so I want to make sure that we respect your time and getting started. So as you join, please rename yourself, take a time to introduce you in the chat. I welcome you to include your pronouns and your territorial acknowledgement, and we are getting started. So I see people adding their comments here about their first experiences of being outdoor, and it is really wonderful to see so many experiences. And I want to acknowledge that not everybody will have the same experiences, right? Some people grew up in areas that are very nature-centered, and others who came from very urban centers and did not have as much access to outdoors. That said, I hope that everybody can start thinking about the different ways in which nature is part of their lives. And we are, I want to welcome everybody again and just say we're so glad to have you here with us, and thank you for choosing to spend this next hour with us. I see so many names that I'm familiar with already, many that I'm not familiar with, and I am very, very happy to see so many new names as well. And I already see a question if we're going to be recording. Yes, we will be recording, and this will be made available on demand. So I like to start today's webinar with a territorial acknowledgement. So the Sustainable Forest Initiative.
Anna,
yes?
just want to make sure that I'm not seeing the slides. So
Oh, you're not?
no, just want to make sure that you know that.
Thank you. Let's try again. Working now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'd like to open today's webinar with a territorial acknowledgement to recognize that Sustainable Forestry Initiative and Corazon Latino's diverse team of staff and consultants live and work on the ancestral territories of many indigenous nations, including from our offices on the traditional unceded territories of Nacotchtank and Piscataways people in present-day Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia. And I also want to highlight that SFI, we're committed to building forest-focused collaborations that recognize and respect Indigenous peoples' rights, traditional knowledge, relationship with the land, and the enduring leadership that they have in forest stewardship and responsibilities to future generations. So I welcome you to share your own territorial knowledge on the chat as well. And if we haven't met, I'm Anna Lerner, pronouns she, her, ella, ella. I'm originally from São Paulo, Brazil, and I have lived in the US for the last 13 years. I'm the Senior Director for Professional Learning and PLT Products at the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advance sustainability through forest-focused collaborations. And I work in our PLT, Project Learning Tree Initiative, supporting educators in having the knowledge, the skills, and the instructional materials to teach about complex environmental issues. So our goal with Project Learning Tree is to advance environmental education, forest literacy, and career pathways using trees and forest as windows on the world. And for that, we offer online, in-person, and blended professional development opportunities, as well as instructional materials and mentorship programs for young people ages 18 to 35. So again, we're so happy to have you with us today. We know that there's some people who are completely new to PLT. This is their first experience, as well as some people who have been with PLT for a long time. So if you just joined us, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat and share with us your first memory of your experience in nature. Outcomes guide everything that we do at SFI and at PLT. And so it will be successful today if after this workshop, you are able to apply strategies for engaging the Latino community and multilingual learners in outdoor learning, as well as experience a PLT activity discovering how it may use to explore nature through the lens of trees and forests. And I'm so glad to see people in the chat sharing that they're from Argentina, some Brazilians. It's wonderful to see you here. Have an international community. Fantastic. So to achieve these outcomes, we have designed an interactive webinar in which we'll invite you to participate in the chat, and we'll use the poll feature as well. So after this brief welcome, we'll discuss the importance and some strategies for exploring nature with multilingual learners. And then I'll pass the mic to my co-presenter, Felipe Benitez from Corazon Latino, to discuss some tips and tricks and strategies for working with Latino communities. And before we close the webinar, we'll lead a virtual adaptation of an activity from PLT's new activity guide, Explora tu Ambiente. And before we go into the meat of our webinar, just a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on demand, and will in a follow-up email. And to all of you, everybody who registered will receive it. And we'll also make today's slides available for your reference if you like to just, check in and say, what exactly did they say? Oh, yes, here it is. So you can use that to support you after the webinar. And we encourage you to ask questions, share ideas throughout the webinar using the chat. Felipe and I will stop and answer questions as they come up, but don't wait for those moments. Please continue to ask your questions on the chat and share your ideas. I think that more than as much as you want to learn from us, you also want to learn from your peers, and peers want to learn from you. So please share your ideas, thoughts, and experiences. All right, so let's start. And we know that language evolves as society changes, right? And so for a long time, we used the term English as second language learners to describe people who knew a different language and was learning English. But most currently, the used term is multilingual learners. That's the term that we use to refer to students who are developing proficiency in multiple languages, including English. And this shift is an attempt to use an asset-based language to describe these learners, focusing not on their varying levels of proficiency of the English language, but on the fact that they also use other languages, and that can be an asset for them as well as their peers. So we believe that all learners and young people have the right to engage in meaningful learning about the environment, and proficiency in English should not be a prerequisite for learning or engaging with nature. And it's something that can be developed concurrently while learners are interacting with their environment and their peers through hands-on learning. So as we get started, please share in the chat, how have you engaged with multilingual students in nature-based learning? I'm very curious to hear your experiences. I'll give you a moment before I continue. And if you have none, none is a fair answer too. And maybe that's why you're here, because you want to get started. So no wrong answers here. Thank you, Meg Hanna, which is our fantastic team member, sharing how she taught arboriculture and horticulture to Francophone high schools. Has high school students. Thank you, Meg. Thanks for sharing. All right, I see Julia sharing. Yeah, I see your comments coming in. Haven't done much engagement yet. Oh, but you have your first multilingual employee and you want to change this. That's fantastic. It's great to hear. And thank you for joining us, Julia. Fabula, gardening, nature walks, visiting farms. Yeah, a lot of opportunities for hands-on learning in those settings. Set up a learning experience for the Russian community at a local lake. Wow, Melanie, that's fantastic. We hosted Spanish-speaking students on field trips and summer programs. Liz just shared. Leading a group for a 4-day science-based science camp. Awesome. We definitely have some activities for you, Joel. Manage a field trip program for many different languages. How rich. That's such a rich experience, I bet. All right. So keep coming those comments. I see somebody saying, I'm new. That's great, Marilyn. We're so glad to have you here. So an integral part of an equity-centered approach to teaching multilingual learners is creating learning environments that encourage all students' participation in and contributions to learning. So I am going to share here 5 practices for creating a learning environment that supports multilingual learners. And for each of these practices, I'm also going to highlight a few strategies that supports it. And although this webinar, we're focusing on Spanish-speaking learners and communities, this practices apply to all multilingual learners. For those working with Chinese students and Mandarin speakers and Russian, this applies to them as well. And some of these strategies might be new to you, while others might not. So please ask questions using the chat. Again, share other strategies and other practices and anything else that you like to add. We're so glad to have you here and we want to hear from you. So first practice that I'd like to highlight for us is that we must recognize that multilingual learners and their language, their cultural practices, and the experiences, we must recognize that as a valuable resource for learning. Multilingual learners bring many assets to the programs that we have in the classrooms. So some of them that I want to highlight are the concepts and ideas that they have already learned. So for example, multilingual learners might have lived in parts of the world where they have significant experiences with different phenomenons and might already have in their vocabulary terms that other learners might not know, right? So this allows them to support other English-speaking peers in hearing and learning more advanced terms as well. Multilingual learners also offer different ways of knowing and using language that they've learned in their homes and communities. Diverse home and community experiences and cultural practices and previously experienced successes. And they also bring flexible brains that are always processing 2 or more languages and making connections across these languages and cultures. So these are all assets that they bring and we can leverage in the classroom and in our programs. So again, if you have any experience, anything that you'd like to add, please add them to the chat. Number 2, the practice is we must connect to the activity and the topic to learners' lives by using their contributions as the foundation for learning, right? So not a new concept necessarily, but it's also always helpful to remember this and how this is especially true for multilingual learners. So some ways to do this are to learn about and draw on your learners' interests, their experiences, and their expertise about the topic at hand. Provide learning experiences and materials that reflect their identities and their experiences as learners. Relate the topics to issues in their communities, right? This can lead to an exploration of how an issue impacts different communities in different ways, right? This not only creates spaces in which multilingual learners feel valuable through their experiences, but also support the development of critical thinking and a broader understanding of the topic by the entire group. So this can be a very rich discussion. And the last one on this for this practice is engaging learners in shared experiences related to the topic, right? So multilingual learners as well as English speakers, bring them together in shared experiences so that they can have a common foundation for the reasoning and for making connections between topics. All right, I don't see any questions on the chat, so I feel like we're doing well. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. So third practice, foster equitable group norms and peer collaboration. So this is very important to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and welcome in participating in the learning. So a few strategies for that. Develop a group culture where multiple languages are recognized, overtly appreciated, and incorporated into the discourse, and address biases when they show up, right? If somebody made a comment that seemed biased towards one language versus the other or one culture versus the other, that should be addressed immediately. Discuss strategies that all students can use to foster effective communication among peers. And so, for example, strategies that anyone can use are simplifying the language by rephrasing and slowing down, or amplifying language by providing multiple examples or using non-oral representations, or checking for understanding, and so on. These are all strategies that you can teach other students, other learners, and that they can use not only in this situation, but in their lives, right? And last but not least, we should provide ample time after inviting learners to share ideas, as well as after they finish speaking. This gives enough time for students who are multilingual, that are processing information in two languages at the same time, to think through how's the best way for them to communicate and then share. All right. Number 4, encourage the use of learners' home languages and allow for multiple ways for them to engage, explore, and express ideas. So if you're familiar with the Universal Design for Learning, you may recall that offering learners multiple means to engage, explore, and express ideas make learning environments more inclusive to all. And this is true for multilingual learners. So the practices that I'm sharing in the slide rely on this idea of multiple ways of engagement, representation, and expression. And I'm going to post the link to Universal Design for Learning on the chat momentarily if you're not familiar with it. So the first practice is to supplement your oral communication with visuals, gestures, action, and reading documentation of key ideas. So for example, you can use a drawing, or you can use a model, or a concept map, etc. This allows learners to have multiple ways to engage with what you are sharing. You should build learners' content knowledge using resources in their most familiar languages. So that means using activities and resources, student pages in their most familiar language, and offer multiple means of representation of that content. So not only present a text, but maybe offer a video or a graphic or a map, different ways that they can represent and engage with that content. And lastly, you can encourage learners to express and explore ideas, also using multiple representations. So not everybody needs to present necessarily. People might be more comfortable doing a drawing or writing something or creating a model, a concept map, a diagram, right? Students can use different ways to express the same ideas. And we're going to our 5th and last practice. I still don't see any comments or questions, but please feel free to add anything if you have experiences that you want to share with others. Oh, I see here, Elizabeth, it's great to see you. So for languages I'm not proficient in, Elizabeth says she does her best to have pictures with clearly printed word beneath them to be inclusive. Thank you, Elizabeth. That's great. Thanks for sharing that tip. And that goes very well with the multiple means for engagement, representation, and expression. I love that. All right, here we go. The 5th and last practice that I'm going to share today is to foster language growth. So always focus on the learner's meaning over their linguistic correctness, right? You can model alternative language choices and provide feedback on language when it's necessary to avoid misunderstanding or to help a student better express an idea. But when addressing those errors, focus on one or two errors over a period of time and really build the student's confidence and ability to self-correct. Number two, scaffold learners transition from one language to the other. And for example, the transition from reading a text and taking notes to discussing these notes with peers and then writing a summary of the text. That can help students who are multilingual to transition from one language to the other. And so these were the points that I wanted to bring. These were summarized from the work being done by WYDA, which is part of the University of Wisconsin-Madison under the Wisconsin Center for Education Research. And I'll share the link to that on the chat as well. If you want to learn more, I highly encourage you to visit their website. It provides many tools and support for educators working with multilingual learners. And so with that, I don't see any questions on the chat, so I'll give you a moment in case you have any questions. But otherwise, I'm going to pass the mic to my co-presenter, Felipe.
Thank you, Anna. That's amazing. Really, really important. Hola, how is everybody? I have, I believe 35 minutes. I'm hoping that I can get everything. I usually talk a lot. I love that. I love sharing what we know, what we don't know, and mostly share from our mistakes because that's the best way to learn. Uh, I encourage you, as Anna has said, if you have the opportunity or have any questions that are pressing or that you see something, please put it in the chat. And my colleague here, Dara. Hey, Dara, say hi at least. She will be
Hello.
she will be ringing out, like interrupting me in case it's something important. If not, then we'll save it for the last. So just feel free to chime in. Corazon Latino is an organization that has been around for 80 years. We've mostly helped and supported the work from federal government agencies, corporations, and other organizations in really reaching diverse communities. In the case of the government side on agencies, the Forest Service, the Park Service, and really fulfilling their obligations under the Civil Rights Act, which is make accessible their programs and resources to everybody. It means everybody, no matter what language, what their where they are located, and what is their immigration status, which is very important. So everybody has access, has the right to access those programs, has the right to enjoy our public lands, and also the obligation to care for them. We deeply believe in reciprocity, meaning with nature, meaning that if we take care of nature, nature will take care of us. If we plant trees, if we take care for the soil, if we protect Mother Nature, will get a lot of the benefits. And you all know all of the benefits from being outdoors, from green spaces, from trees, and you will be actually we just started a new project with the Forest Service where we'll be actually creating a marketing campaign to help share those benefits, especially of urban and community forestry, urban tree. So stay tuned for that. It was a shameless plug. Next slide, please, Anna. One of the reasons we decided to join this amazing effort that Project Learning Tree has an undertaking of really making resources, educational resources available for Spanish speakers, but hopefully this continues with other languages. It is the notion that we really need to recognize that translations are not enough. Before ChatGPT, our best source for translation was Google Translate. and Google Translate will do some horrible things in terms of translation, and people will just like, and not blaming it or doing anything for doing it, just a resource. Now ChatGPT gives you a little bit more context and you can provide a little bit better, but still the human eye, the editing, the what we call transcreation of resources is very important. And I'm very pleased. I'm proud that Project Learning Tree took that very seriously. And the guide that we're presenting today really comes in like, it's not just a translation. They could have just sent it to a translator and get it back, and that's great. Maybe double check it. No, they really made an effort to make sure that context, that nuances, that different words, a lot of elements, cultural and linguistic elements were accurate and will resonate with a majority of the public that we're trying to reach. And I'll let Anna discuss it later on. But what we've found, and this is an example I would like using because these are, for those who speak Spanish, they will get it immediately, that this is just a horrible translation, probably done with Google Translate. And that really, and these are safety signs that could really create problems. And basically, extreme caution, watch for eyes. It was roughly translated, the clock, extreme, be careful for the eyes. Makes no sense in Spanish. And that could be a problem when we are dealing with messages related to safety. But again, this is what lost in translation means. And if you ever are curious, I love this segment from the Jimmy Fallon show, which is translate those lyrics. If you want to have some fun, look at them, because that's exactly what happens. They run a song, the lyrics of a song, and they run it back and forth with Google Translate. It just comes completely different. So that's what really happens when we use Google Translate or those resources. So just be careful. Sometimes that's all we got, and that's fine. But if we are able, we have the resources to do it, it's very important. Same thing with the message on the right. And I mean, and I'm sure we all seen in different languages, and I think there's a lot of memes out there and a lot of Instagram posts and TikTok that reflect this. Like, so it is important, and that's why we say in translation, we just want to avoid people just checking boxes for the sake of checking boxes, and really know at least what the process means. If you don't have the resources, that's fine, but rather have something in English rather than sending the wrong information or something that can put people's lives in danger. I mean, that extreme. But anyhow, next slide, please. We always, I mean, for the past few years, we have this debate, this consideration was like, should we use Latinx? Should we use Latino, which is Hispanic? And we will continue. And then there's debate is coming. But I just want to share some of our practical experience of when and how to use each one of these. And I know that a lot of people may have preferences. We don't advocate for any particular. I have my personal preferences, but just as a way, Latino, it's a way. Latino Hispanics is used by the federal government, and basically it refers to a person of Cuba, Mexican, Puerto Rican, or South Central American, or other Spanish cultural race. Latino is preferred among people from Latin America. Hispanic is it's a little bit more formal, and it's more like second, third, fourth generation. So it's a matter of preference. Latinx, it's a way you probably all know. It's a term that denotes that doesn't denote a specific gender, as a gender neutral term, non-binary. That especially younger generations, especially for second, third generation Latinx or Latino or Hispanic youth prefer. And there's other forms like Latino with the at, or Latina, which is kind of getting a little bit more traction nowadays. There was a debate between Latinx, because in Spanish, Latinx actually doesn't make a lot of sense. It's Latinx, so it's very hard to pronounce, so it defeats the purpose. So it's just, we don't advocate for anything, but just know your audience. If you tell Latinx to a first generation Mexican like me, We'll probably like what? And others, or if you say Hispanic to a younger first, second generation, they will select them. So know your audience, but know that this, sometimes we say, use it in interchangeably. And that's usually the safest bet. Any questions or anything so far, Dara?
No, but the poll isn't working, so we're gonna have them answer in the chat.
Okay, no worries. Next slide, please. All right, so I've seen that there's a lot of nationalities, origins, roots. I can tell that even if they're not physically in places like Puerto Rico, Argentina, we have a huge representation, and most of you may have heard this. So I want to do a quick test. So we all can agree that this is a chocolate cake. It's a cake. So how would you describe it? Please answer in the chat. Is it a pastel? Is it a bizcocho? Is it a torta? Or is there other? So
We've got a lot of pastel de chocolat, bizcocho, yummy, someone said.
that's a good way to call it. I like it.
Torta.
We have keke, which it's new to me.
Keke, yes, keke. Right. Well, guess what? All of them are accurate. All of them are accurate. However, and those are probably from Argentina, a torta in Mexico means a whole different thing. So if you go and ask for a torta in Mexico and you're expecting a cake, you're gonna get something very different. That could be considered false advertising. What I'm saying is words matter. And even something as simple, we can see this great debate, but that doesn't mean that yeah, torta con jamón y queso. I love that. Yummy. So this is just a way to exemplify how it's complex. So as we all know, we heard it, the Latino community is not a monolith. So this is a perfect example. And we can come up with many other examples in common day language. And it's fun. It's also fun. But we also want to make sure that we're conscious and we're understanding who we are talking to. If we're talking to a predominantly Puerto Rican community, well, pastel might be how Mexicans like me call it, but I'm not, they like, I don't get it. Or if it's Argentina or South American or and vice versa. So just want to make sure that we understand that there's complexities, but there's also common ground. Next slide, please, Anna. And as I was mentioning, common language, at the end of the day, Spanish is one language. And we are, if you want to go even more strict, that it is, we're following the Real Academia de la Lengua Española, the Royal Academy of the Spanish language from Spain, and that sets the standard for correct Spanish. So that's good. But there's cultural similarities. We're family oriented, and that doesn't mean only Latino. I think it runs across many other diverse communities and even and more traditional. Music, arts, and obviously dance and fiesta. So there's common ground. Even we might be calling it a torta and we might like, that's fine. There's still common things that we can associate, and people can be very forgiving and very understanding as long as you're generally trying to do an appropriate. But if you have the resources, you have the ability to do, it's very important to understand who you're talking to. It would be a very different way of talking to a Puerto Rican in Ohio or in Pennsylvania than a Mexican American sixth generation in Colorado or New Mexico. So just know your context. Next slide, please. Rules of thumbs. Recent arrivals, which means we immigrated in our lifetime, like myself, we probably will prefer Spanish. First generation, which is my son, English primarily, but you can also make sure that you can do some Spanish. And my favorite, which is what everybody uses, is Spanglish. So would you interchangeably cambiar las palabras, you change the words and act. And second, third generation and on probably English and Spanglish. Again, sometimes elements, sometimes certain words can make a huge difference because it's not about the language, it's about the culture. It's about understanding the culture. And so anyhow, any questions here? So far, so good?
No questions yet.
Great. Next slide, please. what we try to do and what we try to, yeah, mitad español and mitad inglés. I love it. Mitad en español, I have in English. I love it. Thank you for that comment. So, and here we're, when we designed this model or this graphic was Latinx, so because I knew who we were talking to younger audience, so make change or whatever you prefer. So the way that Corazón Latino works and how we really try to make sure that anything related to environmental education, all the different areas that we touch, and you see them all around civic engagement, civil rights, outdoor recreation, environmental justice, that we generate what it's called or what we call a surround sound. It's almost like when you have these nice speakers at home or at your office where you can listen, or when you go to the movies and you hear the music or the audio from different angles. That we want to ensure. So what we want to create for our communities is to really get to deliver the message to them through different channels. Some are the grassroots activities, which you're also doing. Social media, digital strategies are important, and traditional media. So every time we do or we activate or we think about reaching Latino communities, we try to reach from different angles. So there's repetition in the terms of the sources that they hear a message about protecting the environment, about planting trees, you name it. This is what we do. So this is a model just to keep in mind. I know a lot of you are going to be focused a lot on the grassroots activities, but just know that there's other elements that we can really, and by the way, this is a model that really helps generated a lot of successes for Corazon Latino, because we're good at running an event in person, but we're also great at creating programs. An example, and there you mind sharing of a program that we're very proud and have been running for now 8 years, or 9 even before Corazon Latino existed, is Descubre el Bosque, which is the Spanish language version of Discover the Forest, which is a decade-old program for that the Forest Service created back then in partnership with the Ad Council, and now it's run by the National Association of Environmental Education, NAAE. And it is the only, it has resources in Spanish, but our social media accounts, Instagram and Facebook, are the only that we know of. If you know of any others, please let us know. Social media account that presents environmental education, urban forestry, communications every day from Monday through Friday, and sometimes during the weekends, and has done it for 8 years. We have done this for 8 years, so we have like literally hundreds of content. So if you ever need inspiration, need content, go there, and we work in hand with Project Learning Tree. And one of the things that I just want to mention also is that when I say we're very good at grassroots activities, is not only because we are we do these communications, because we root our work with Project Learning Tree. From the beginning of since inception 8 years ago, we have been following Project Learning Tree methodologies in incorporating in our events. So everybody who joins Corazon Latino, either as a volunteer, full-time employee, or consultant, has to go under the Project Learning Tree just to get the basics, and especially the guide that we're presenting today. Next slide, Anna, please. So first question is like, how do we connect with communities? Some of you may already have that because you're working with your with students, but sometimes it's like, hey, we want to do better. We want to do more with the community. So in the next few slides, we're going to give you some recommendations, practical things that you can do, especially to start applying the great resources that we're presenting today. So I think the first and most important, like in your community, no matter how big, small the Latino community is, there's always going to be a Cinco de Mayo celebration, a Hispanic Heritage Month. There's always going to be trusted institutions where Latinos show up. Could be community-based, could be libraries, can be church, can be media, sometimes consulates. So start there. Start where people are already gathering. Where already, again, churches are usually great way because if there's a Spanish language mass, that's where you want to be. The schools, the libraries provide a lot of resources, especially for immigrants. So just figure out what's out there. And if there's media, oh, we don't have TikTok we don't have a TikTok account, Corazon Latino. We because of the restrictions with the federal government on use of TikTok, we haven't integrated, but we do a lot of our work in Instagram. So, but thank you for asking. And again, when you have all these institutions that are that exist, that already have relation and trusted relationship with the Latino community, start building partnerships. So bring your resources. Hey, can we give a presentation? Can we run an activity for Hispanic Heritage Month or for Earth Day using project learning trees? So you add to their offering, and usually the type of work that we do, conservation, environmental education, is very well received because it's one of the elements that it's not necessarily expertise. So it is a fantastic work. Build partnership. Don't avoid transactional relationships that like, oh, we're do this or and not. Make sure that you're thinking long term and be patient. It takes time. It takes a lot of time to develop those relationships, but you got to start somewhere. Next slide, please. Another recommendation that we do, especially you as formal and informal educators, is be there for your community, especially for the Latino and communities of color or diverse communities. And here's just two examples that Corazon Latino has been there and just put for thought. I'm not saying that even though we're an environmental education, One Health approach organization, we were there for a community when needed the most. So the one on the left is in Puerto Rico. We have had a very interesting program out of the island northeastern with the Yunque National Forest. When pandemic hit, well, yes, it's great that we are promoting engagement with our natural resources, but people are going through, there's a lot of other needs that we need to help. So because of the network and because the trust that we have the community, USA asked us to help them do food distribution in especially hard to reach communities in the northeastern part of Puerto Rico. So all of these areas where the food banks away from San Juan, where it was hard, where there's a lot of people going through food insecurity due to the pandemic, we helped there. And that relationship is something that now we can continue to engage because we've been there. The one on the right and it's a different approach. That's if you see this, it's a ceremonial tree planting that's happening. And the young lady that is holding the tree, she's the niece of the late Breonna Taylor. So when her community was hurting during, it was, I believe, 2020, we were able to provide in an event that they were doing and remembrance, we provided a ceremonial tree planting, and that helps heal the community. So just two examples of things that could be, that it's not just because we do just stay in your lane and conservation only. No, there's ways that you can develop those relationships. And as teachers, as educators, there's always these opportunities to engage in a meaningful way with families, with community members. Next slide, please, Anna. So when we are hosting events where we're trying to make sure that a lot of Latinos participate or communities of color participate, so what's the first thing that we ask? It's that we need to be asking. It's what are those barriers of entry? Why people are or are not, mostly why they're not participating? What will stop them? It used to be a bigger problem before the pandemic because back before pandemic, we were just trying to get Latinos into public lands. Pandemic hit and everybody is now in our public lands. But we almost have the opposite problem. But at the same time, we want to make sure that they're meaningful and experiences that really bring people back, that people find that reciprocity. So usually the barriers of entry that we find in when events are being held, like a tree planting or a nature walk, is cost. Sometimes, even if it's in a national park, maybe sometimes there's entry cost, maybe connected with transportation. Maybe if you need to bring or you need to commute or pay either pay for gas or entry fee, or maybe if you're using public transportation, the cost for a family to come in. So that's important to consider. So how can you help solve these barriers of entry? Timing. Traditionally, we know that a lot of events that are related to conservation, to environmental tree planting are done on a Saturday. Are done on Saturdays, maybe early in the morning, where in without stereotyping or making generalization. A lot of especially immigrant communities, they might be working in the service industry, and Saturday it's a work day. So doing something on our side might not be the best idea. So we always say, like, hey, think about Sunday, or when are the or Saturday afternoon. When are our communities already there? Because that we can tap. So don't expect, because we've seen it multiple times, like, oh, we put out a flyer in Spanish and we invited Latino communities. What time was your event? It was Saturday at 7 a.m. Like, yeah, I can guarantee you no one's gonna show up. It's just know those differences. And information, sometimes people don't know that there's events, that there's opportunities for engagement because they don't know about it. So those are what we always consider are fundamental. And if you think this through when you're implementing a program, if you're inviting a family, if you're inviting your students, just think about those elements that may reduce or that may become a barrier of entry and how to reduce them. Next slide, please, Anna.
And this is your 5-minute warning as well.
Thank you very much. So getting the word out, flyers, online, traditional media, phone numbers, have this as much information. The more information you can provide for your event, for what you're doing, if you're inviting folks at a school, provide as much as you can. People will have questions. We always recommend, if you are able to, have have a number where people can call and ask questions. Is my kid gonna be safe? Can I bring this? Can I bring the little ones? So make sure that communication is a very important. Over communicate with communities, especially with communities which English is not their first language. Over communicate it's key. Next slide, please, Anna. At the event, be inclusive, especially if it's outside the school time or formal education. You need to make sure that the whole family will. You need to be ready that the whole family will show up. It's anywhere from the toddlers all the way to the abuelitos, to the grandparents. Make sure that you have bilingual programming for both kids and for adults. Cultural awareness, which the guide will help you a lot. Simple instructions, simple messaging, make people feel safe. Be aware of sensitivities like distrusting uniforms. That usually, if people are collaborating with the park service or the forest service and they're in uniform, people may think it's law enforcement or immigration. We need to be aware that there's a distrust, not just for Latinos, for every community of color. Have a call to action. Always tell them, hey, we're here to protect Mother Earth. We're here to celebrate our heritage, and ask for folks to spread the word. Next slide, Anna. Steps of activity. Project Learning Tree will give you a lot of great things. Meet the scientists, interpretation, career pathways, a lot of things that you can do. And again, make sure that each activity that you're offering also tailors to different groups and with different mobility, different accessibility. So for an older adult, it might be complicated, or for a toddler to do a nature walk. So think about those elements. And if you're doing an event that incorporates family, what can they be doing? What elements can you incorporate in this process? Next slide, Anna, please. And bring out of the box things, not just environmental education. I heard of nature walks. Well, maybe forest therapy or forest bathing, movement class, yoga, Zumba, dance lessons, silent disco. That's fine. Next slide. Anything that brings, and two elements that are super important if you are allowed, it's music and food. Music and food bring people together, no matter their origin, no matter their language. So those are two elements that we always encourage. And on top of that, you do the environmental education, you get a winning combination. Next slide, Anna, and I'll be just very brief. Key dates, there's always moments. National Park Week, we're now in Hispanic Heritage Month, National Conservation, Latino Conservation Week. So just be aware, and not only the ones that are the common sense like Earth Day, think about Mother's Day, think about Dia del Niño, Day of the Kids, Independence Day. So what can be what events are in your community that can really build upon this message. Next slide, please. And that's
Raphael has a question.
Sure.
What recommendations can you offer to those organizations that want to reach out to Latinos, but they don't have Latino staff?
One, if any of your staff speak Spanish, don't be afraid, don't be ashamed of doing that, and that's perfectly try. But find those trusted partners. Don't try to fake it. Find those churches, find those institutions that may be helping you, that have the trust, and provide them the resources. Because then it's easier to train somebody, a community organizer, on how to do environmental activities, like especially with Project Learning Tree, than trying to like have the translation that might not be as it. So find those trusted partners, those trusted messengers that can help you. And in worst case scenario, bring an interpreter. I mean, that's sometimes that could work, and we've done it, and not a line by line, but somebody who can help you convey the message in a proper. It might not be exact translation of the exact words, but it can help in this process. Yes. Another question I saw. Roberta, say something.
It's a comment. I want to get my community involved, but I have limited Spanish speaking skills.
Don't worry. Find those kids that may have it. Find that trusted partners, and don't be afraid. People actually enjoy it and value if you're trying. You don't have to speak perfect Spanish, and I actually, it's not offensive. It's not like, no, you're making an effort, and you can say like, hey, by the way, mi español no es perfecto, but I'm trying, and people value. And most of the times, people they're bilingual. I mean, they're living in the US, and their levels might be, or their kids will be bilingual. So use that, but make the effort. Don't be afraid of making the effort. That's the message that I would say. And Spanglish, yes. Anything else? Any other questions? Well, I know I have run over my time, but I just wanted to say I'm here. Darius here. We will love to help you, and I know we can do a lot more. And like, okay, this is great to hear, but how do we do it? Reach out to us. We probably have experiences. I mean, we have done all kinds of things, anywhere from citizen science to bringing faith-based communities to bringing schools. We also manage the Woodsy Owl Conservation Corps, which is our nation's icon for environmental education. We can help. So let us know, and especially now that we're partnering with Project Learning Tree, because at the same time, we will reach out to you because we have a lot of opportunities right now. For example, if anybody's from San Antonio, we'll love to hear you. If you're around, or San Antonio or San Jose, California, because we work with Mexican professional soccer teams on doing environmental education. So we're going to have teams that are coming into those two places, and we will love to figure out a way to bring, because then we'll bring soccer, we bring culture. Trust me, it's fantastic. So let me know if you don't know anybody, or you're physically in those two places, and as we go, we will have others. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Felipe. And I gotta say, Felipe has been an amazing partner to us, and he's, as he said, not only willing to share his experiences, his knowledge, but also bringing you in to the events that he's doing. So highly encourage you to reach out if you have questions or want to learn more. So again, Felipe, thank you so much. It was fantastic, full of tips there. And we are shifting gears in this like 5 minutes that we have. We don't have a lot of time, but I want to take you through a quick adaptation of an activity that we have from Explora to Ambiente, and that it's called 10 semillas viajarán, or have seeds will travel for those that prefer the English or are already familiar with the Explore Environment Guide. So we're going to skip this because we're running a little bit behind. So we are going to do an activity to explore how seeds disperse. So what are the métodos de dispersión de semillas? And so we're going to do that through an interactive activity in which you'll participate using the chat. It's called Chat Waterfall. And the way it works is that I'm going to show you different seeds and you'll type it in the chat. How do you think they disperse? But you won't press send until I say go. So when I count down and say go, everyone will press send and we'll see the answers come in at the same time. So before we start, let's try it out. Please write on the chat one word that you would use to describe this webinar so far. I'm going to give you some time to type. Don't press send yet, just one word that you would use to describe this webinar. All right. So now I'm going to count down. 3, 2, 1, go. Woo! I love this. Exactly. I love Chat Waterfall. Informative, encouraging, interesting, visionario. I love that. Emocionante, exciting. Thank you. Love it. So we're going to do the same thing, but with seeds now. So let's go. The 4 options that you have are flota en el aire, or floats on air, rebota o rueda, bounces or rolls, almacenado por animales, stored by animals, or flota en el agua, floats on water. Okay, so the first seed, which is not actually from a tree, because coconut trees are not actual trees. Interesting fact if you're didn't know that. Coco, or coconut. Where do you think it goes? Does it float in water? Does it bounces and rolls? Is it stored by animals? Floats in air? 3, 2, 1, go. All right. I see rebota o rueda, but the actual answer for this one is flota en el agua. Floats on air and in water. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I think it could bounce and roll too, but it actually floats. So the next one, diente de león, or dandelion. All right, same thing, same options. Oops, seems like this one is already giving away the answer. Let's try a different one. Nuez, pecan. All right. Rebota o rueda, almacenado por animales. 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, they're both could be true, but in this case, it's rebota o rueda. So, and the last one, which is an easier one since the other one's already completed, cereza, which is stored by animals. And so in this activity for PLT, students actually go outside and look for seeds. And once they're ready, they come back inside and they plot this using our student pages. So we are running a little bit out of time, so I want to respect you and your time. So if you have to leave at 6:30, I want to first of all thank you for being here with us. And I'm going to go really fast about the Explora tu Ambiente, which is the Spanish edition of our Explore Environment Guide, for those who are familiar with it. For those who are not familiar with Explore Environment, they're new to PLT. This is one of our instructional award-winning instructional materials. And Felipe, as Felipe mentioned, it's not enough to simply translate word by word. So you need to adapt it. So that's what we say we did. We say we transcreated Explora tu Ambiente. And I want to thank you, Cecilia Ochoa from Mexico, or Mexico PLT coordinator who's in this webinar, for all her contributions to this process. It's a 50 activity guide that has over 430 pages, so it's a heavy lift. We could not have done without you. I see questions about how you get the book on our website, shop.plt.org. And at the end of this webinar, we'll be sharing with you 3 free activities. So for you to take full advantage of them, I encourage you to take a look at a video that we have on our website that I'm going to share with you. We won't have time to cover it all today, but it takes you through a lot of the features that we have, the different grades, and I'm going to skip to say that the student pages are available in both English and Spanish. So depending on how you're using the activity, however, if you're doing only with English speakers, only with Spanish speakers, or with both, you can find the student page and lead to the student page directly to the students that you need to. So these are available as PDFs. You can download it, you can print it, you can share virtually with your students. And you can find them at plt.org/myKguide. And the Explora to Ambiente reflects the latest edition of Explora Environment that we launched in 2023. It also includes updates that will be reflected in future editions, including the latest interface of the AJ screen, which is a tool developed by the U.S. Forest Service, and that is used by students in the activity Environmental Health for All, in which students explore environmental equity and propose actions to address issues. So we're almost done, but I cannot not mention the fact that we have a lot of appendices and indexes to help you identify the right activities for you. This is the De un vistazo, or at a glance, that help you select the best activity for you and your students based on their grade, subject, STEM skills, and the different variations that we have. I didn't mention that because we're going very fast, but most of our activities have variations for different grades to higher or lower grades. And we also have a topic index if you're looking to teach specific topics. We have an index that connects to our forest literacy framework, which is a resource that was developed in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service and describe concepts that students should know by grade 12 to be considered forest literate. And so if you want to know how to teach a specific concept in a fun, engaging way, now you can look at this index and quickly identify an activity from the guide that address that concept. And you can download the Forest Literacy Framework for free at plt.org/forest literacy. And that one is not yet available in Spanish, but we have plans. And so I know we're running out of time, but if you could share on the chat with me while I wrap us up today, what do you like? If you're familiar with PLT already, what do you like most about PLT materials and our activities? Or if you're new to PLT and this is your first time overview of what we offer, how might you use the resources that we shared today with your students? So we don't have to do the chat waterfall. Feel free to just include it here in the chat as we go through the next few slides. So I just wanted to mention that our activity collection is connected with the NGSS and Common Core, and also have connections on our website to over 30 state standards, as well as non-formal programs. So if you work with 4-H, Scouts, or if you're interested in looking at how our activities are connected to the UN SDGs, you can find that on our website. And I want to say, if you want to continue your journey with PLT, if you're new to teaching outdoors, if you're new to teaching to Spanish speakers, don't worry, we got you. We have a diverse and network across the US and internationally, and we provide hands-on professional development to help you confidently teach outdoors. So here's what some of our educators who participated, what they have shared. And this network does so much more. And because you've attended this webinar and you're already part of our network, And I invite you to contact your PLT state coordinator for additional professional development opportunities. You can use the QR code to find it. And they can also share local resources, assistance, ideas for incorporating nature into your classroom, and much more. If you are looking for a in-person or virtual workshop to attend next, you can find it on this website, plt.org/PLT in the wild, and you'll be able to find on-demand virtual workshops as well as in-person workshops from all over the US. And as I mentioned, we would love to share with you 3 activities that you can download today to use with your students. I'm going to post the link in the chat. There's one for each grade band. And yeah, download it, use it. Let us know how you used it, because we love to hear from you. And we are also offering you special pricing on Explora tu Ambiente as a thank you for you to joining us today and deciding to spend this 1 hour of your afternoon or evening. So you can go to shop.plt.org and use the promo code ETA20. And this is valid through the end of the month. So take advantage of that if you're interested. And again, we'd love to celebrate you. Share what you've been doing with your students using PLT on social media, and hashtag us so that we can promote and celebrate the amazing work that I know that you are doing. And here are a couple more resources that you can, oops, here you go. Forgot to change the slides. So here we go, a few more resources for you to use. The promo code, thank you, Josh Brinkman, our amazing VP of Education and my boss. And I also want to share the evaluation survey here that if you have a moment to respond, it only takes 2 minutes. It's really, really quick. If you could share what you thought of today's webinar, and it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And last but not least, we'll be attending the 2024 conference for North American Association for Environmental Education. And Felipe and I are co-presenting a session there, and we're super excited. So if you'll be there, join us, and I'd love to see you. Let's connect. And Felipe, I'll pass it on to you if you have a moment to share about the events that Corazon Latino has before we wrap up.
Yeah, so go to our website, events 2021. With that URL, we have a lot of things happening, especially in the DC area, Arizona, Puerto Rico. So just know, and if you're in the DC area, Maryland, we have a few things happening this and next week to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, to celebrate National Public Lands Day. So we're always and also feel free to reach out to us if there's something we want to partner, or you want to work with us, or you want recommendations. We're happy to help. This is the work that we do. So thank you, Ana. I really appreciate, and I really appreciate all the work that PLT has been doing. Así que muchísimas gracias por todo.
Gracias, Felipe. Nos encanta tener ustedes como nuestro parcero en eso. And thank you so much for everybody who stayed to the end and spend this hour and 8 minutes with us. It was really wonderful to have you here and hear from your experiences. Thank you for participating in the chat. Thank you so much. And we'll be sharing the recording.
Jacqueline for helping us in that.
Sorry? Oh, and yeah, Dara, thank you so much, Dara, for your help. And we'll be sharing the recording. We'll be sharing the links as well as the slides so that you can have that as a reference too. Again, thank you so much. I hope this was a good, worthwhile spent of your time.